I'm Dave Greenwood, and this is Overcoming Distractions. If you are an adult with ADHD, a busy professional, an entrepreneur, a high achiever, or just need some strategies to navigate your adult ADHD, you're in the right place. Who am I? I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD and the author of 2 books, Overcoming Distractions and Overcoming Burnout. I coach and mentor people just like you, and together we navigate the ups and downs of adult ADHD. From getting out of our own way to helping people just like you thrive in the workplace. That's what I do. Want more info on working with me? Hit overcomingdistractions.com. Ready? Let's get to today's podcast. All right, gang, welcome back. It is Dave. You are back on Overcoming Distractions, and if you are that busy professional, that purpose-driven type of person, that senior level, professional, and you have ADHD, or you feel like you have ADHD tendencies, you're all welcome, right? You don't have to have an official piece of paper to hang out here. But as a reminder, that's what we talk about. The busy professional that may be a little distracted, less focused, needs some systems. We don't talk about kids with ADHD. We don't even talk about college as it relates to ADHD, because I can tell you that's one thing I can't help you with. So there are plenty of other podcasts and resources available to people like that. This is for you, the business owner, the entrepreneur, the CEO, the everything in between, that is maybe just having some challenges or want to hang out and get some tips and strategies and feel like you're part of a community. So anyway, hey, I'm going to talk about complaining today. That's and today's podcast is about complaining, and it is as much for me as it is for you. I want to make that clear, because I think so many of us do get stuck in this loop of complaining, and it's really difficult to get out of that sometimes, right? Some of the things I feel we complain about, and I'm sure you probably relate to some of this, and the list is probably endless, right? I mean, let's just be real. But I think some of the things we as people who have these ADHD tendencies or characteristics or whatever you want to call them, are certainly our own time management, our energy. Maybe it's our frustrations with our lack of systems, right? I mean, that's a couple. We complain about other people, right? Because if you've hung out here before, I think you know my philosophy that those of us with adult ADHD, not everything's our fault, right? Other people don't get us things, or we don't, or there's other demands, or, smashing into ways we think, right? So not everything is our fault. So for me, and I talked about this in my book, Overcoming Burnout, which you can just find right on Amazon. I talked about people not paying me when I was running my full-blown public relations firm. They would go out months. I would complain endlessly, not only to myself, but to my wife. I think it's one of the things that really contributed to me feeling burned out, because all I did was complain about that. So, what are some of the other things that those of us that maybe a little distracted complain about, right? We complain about why we can't get things done on time. Why do I procrastinate? Sometimes we don't really know why we procrastinate, and that's why I work with people one-on-one like you, because we try to kind of figure it out and problem solve. Why do I keep making mistakes? Why can't I just get started? We complain. And we need to kind of figure out how to get over that. So, and I'll come out and say it. Some of us with ADHD, and I'm going to throw myself into this category as well, is that, we've got good at complaining at times in our life, right? We've gotten really good at it. So, and again, myself included. Now, for the record, I do believe there is a little bit of value in complaining because it does bring to the surface things we need to work out. And as I just mentioned in my book, Overcoming Burnout, one of the things that we focused on in the book was that the things that we constantly complain about are the things that are stressing us out, and it actually can cause you to feel burned out. It's one of the many factors in feeling burned out, especially with those of us who have ADHD. And these are the things that require our attention, because constant complaining and not fixing something is going to make us feel burned out. So, next, if you are a busy adult with ADHD, and I assume you are because you are still listening to me, you're in a demanding career, you have other commitments such as family life, we have to begin to become problem solvers. We have to start to think like that. And we have to turn complaining into problem solving. Again, I'm reminding myself of this because I need this refresher too, because I do find myself slipping into complaint mode occasionally. So what I want to do is I just want to run through some of the thoughts that I've jotted down about how we can move in this direction. And I think many of you know I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist or a clinician. I'm an entrepreneur with ADHD who has worked as an executive. I've run a business for well over 20 years. I've had to make payroll. I've had to hire and fire and market and get clients and all that stuff. So this is where this kind of street smart perspective comes in, given all that and the ADHD brain. So, by the way, real quick, if you feel like you need somebody to work side by side with to work these things out, maybe you need somebody to problem solve together, you can just hit the website. It's right on the top of the website, the homepage, book that 15-minute call with me. I've had people that work with me short term, and I've had people that work with me on a longer term basis because they love the idea of being able to check in with somebody, bounce ideas off of, hit that reset button. So just hit that button and we can hop on Zoom and chat. The other thing, if you feel like you actually have figured it out, but you love coming here and enjoy the content, you can actually support the podcast and you can buy me a cup of coffee, right? You can buy me 1 cup, you can buy me 3, you can buy me 5. It's just, you just go to buymeacoffee.com/overcomingd. So it's buymeacoffee.com/overcomingd, the letter D. And then I'd be happy for your support because it does take some resources to crank these podcasts out every week. So, all right, that's my pitch. Thank you for hanging out with me. Let's talk about this. So I think one of the things that I've noticed is we need to kind of recognize that complaint loop, right? We get in this loop that sometimes can be like vicious and we have kind of a hard time getting out of it. And again, I think complaining often feels productive. But think about it for a minute. It's actually like a stress release valve, which is okay, but it's not really going to create any change. It feels good sometimes, right? I mean, that's just, getting something off our chest. But in the end, it doesn't really get us far unless we get tired of hearing ourselves, right? I'll remind you again, this is for me as well, because I think all of us, including myself, get stuck in this loop sometimes, and it's just, it's a vicious cycle. So, and I don't want people to think that I have completely 1,000% figured this out, and that I never complain about anything, because that's just not true. So I just want to remind you of that. Many professionals with ADHD get stuck. Like we narrate that problem, right? Instead of moving towards the solution. moving that needle in our favor. And I think solutions can be difficult sometimes. And maybe, like some other things, maybe we need to break it down, right? Maybe we need to break it down into smaller steps, like everything from that big project that is staring you in the face day after day to problem solving and stopping to, let complaining take over your life. And I think sometimes you just need to say, hey, I'm talking about this again, but I'm not doing anything about it. So I think that's an important step. We need to separate venting from solving, right? Venting is that emotional regulation we talk about when we're an adult with ADHD, right? Problem solving is forward movement, right? So how do we move forward? We become problem solvers. Maybe we need to give ourselves a time limit to vent. Maybe you need to tell other people around you, like your spouse, that, okay, if you hear me complaining and venting, maybe, call it off at 5 minutes and just remind me that I'm not solving the problem. And what's one thing I can control here? If you've listened to me, that I love the word control, in the most respectful way, not controlling other people, controlling what you can. So next, I think let's talk about, for a second here, how do we shrink the problem to match the capacity we have at the moment? And what I mean by that is I think the ADHD brain kind of stalls out when something is too big, right? It's this massive project that we have to do for a client or our boss, or it's this enormous spreadsheet that, our boss asked us to do, and it's massive, right? And I think when it comes to complaining, sometimes if we're complaining about something, it seems too big to solve at the moment. And I think those of us with ADHD that turn into problem solvers, we ask ourselves, what's the smallest possible step I could take, right? And I think that is powerful. It's like, as I say, stepping off the curb, dipping your toe in the water. Any type of momentum, I think, beats artificial motivation anytime, right? And again, if something is just too big, we'll walk away because it's too massive for us to tackle. So the next thing, and I've caught myself doing this, is I think we need to reframe these things, because it is so easy to say, why is this happening to me, right? Why is this happening to me? Why does this always happen to me? I can't tell you how many times over the years that I've said that to myself. Maybe we can swap that for, okay, what's my next move? I know this is a muscle, as we talk about here. It's a muscle we need to work, right? But if we're constantly complaining, we're externalizing the problem, right? Which isn't such a bad thing. But it is at the end powerless and reactive. So when we figure out how to be an ADHD problem solver, we actually bring that back internally, right? And that brings that into your problem-solving part of your brain. Hopefully, when you do this time and time again, you do feel empowered to take that next step and that next step. And it's somewhat strategic, right? So, again, what's my next move? Okay. What about if we thought about it this way? Drama language, and kind of refocus this on data, so to speak, or facts. The drama is, this always happens to me. I can't catch a break. As we said, why is this happening to me? When we kind of reword this or reframe it, right? Okay, this particular thing happened to me twice this week. Why did this happen? The factual base, or when we actually kind of dig into the problem, I think that creates some clarity. That's another one of my favorite words, because all of us with ADHD, or those of us who think we have ADHD, we need clarity. We can't go on without it. But that clarity creates some options, right? If we allow it to. So, okay, my basement flooded. Why? Because my gutters are clogged. There's your data, right? Okay. If you just keep complaining about your basement being flooded or something happening in your house, okay, why is it? Okay, well, my gutters are in my house. I know not all of you have gutters, but that's just the example I'm using because it's happened to me, right? So, but that's how we kind of, turn why is this happening to me to, why is this happening? So, all right, how about some kind of like micro decisions and kind of trying to slowly build that habit, right? I think I love clarity, but I think sometimes maybe we don't have to wait for that perfect clarity, and we choose just a small action at first. I think, if researching motivation, many, and you can hop on Google and find all this, but the simple explanation of motivation is it starts from doing. You don't need to be motivated to start. You need to start to actually be motivated. You just read The Motivation Myth. It's a great book. So but it's just choosing like that small thing first, right? But sometimes we need to make a decision. Maybe it's one email, setting one boundary. Maybe it's blocking off one day to really zone in on a big project. Maybe it's one conversation that you need to have that you've been complaining about over and over again, right? Maybe it's this massive project that now the deadline is staring you right in the face. What's the first thing we can do? Maybe we need to just kind of clear our head, make a checklist of things that need to be done, make sure you have everything, those types of things. And I think information creates better decisions, right? So we need to understand that information helps us create better decisions, and sometimes we just need that quiet room to be able to work things out and take that first step. Think about this. If you called the plumber every time there was water on your floor, you'd be spending a shit ton of money, right? Because maybe you don't need a plumber. So it's okay to gather a little information by taking a step back before making that first move. I don't think that's such a bad thing. Last point. Start to reframe how you kind of tackle these things, and maybe tell yourself that I'm becoming somebody who figures things out. I think that's a real shift, right? You stop being someone stuck with hard circumstances or woe is me, and start becoming someone who finds a way to figure shit out, okay? Again, if you already have a busy brain and you are in a demanding career, you're running a business, you got kids, you got all this other stuff going on, okay? We have to become problem solvers. I think one of the gifts of having ADHD is being a natural problem solver, right? But for many of us, we don't do it for ourselves effectively. We can go into a room, we can go into a client meeting, we can solve problems, but I think sometimes we don't actually implement this stuff for our own good and benefit. So, all right, I hope that helped, because I know there are a lot of you out there that are complaining. Maybe you even don't recognize it. I hope this helps just kind of create a little bit of a roadmap. It was great for me. I love refreshing my own, self about these things. This is the beauty of this podcast, is I revisit these things for myself. We're doing this together. So again, real quick, if you need somebody you need to work with one-on-one, side-by-side, somebody who gets you, understands your busy brain in the business setting, and you want somebody that meets you where you are, then just hit the website, overcomingdistractions.com. Book that Zoom chat with me. It's a 15-minute chat, give or take a few minutes, and let's see if we're a good fit. All right, gang, we'll catch you next time.